3 on the dot, and I'm now recording. Please, so you can just put reminders on the group for people to know that we have started, we are live. You can share to other members of the community who are not here yet, that they can come in for the webinar. Today's webinar is very important and very, very critical. In fact, the timing is very right. Like I put on the chat right now, just this afternoon. Okay, sir. Just this afternoon, I noticed that Anthropic released a report, labor markets impact on AI, a new measure and early evidence. So based on their data, everybody uses Anthropic for a lot of things, including the Department of War in the US. So they even dropped some metrics on measuring these things. So you could just read that out on your own. A lot of things are happening, and I'll leave that conversation in details to our speaker for today. I can see Ayo is on the call now. Good day, sir. Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, David, I can hear you.
All right, great.
So I'm still just trying to set up. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's fine. That's
one or
fine.
two things. All right, thank you.
All right. So Ayodele is our senior expert in the YDP community. I'm sure most of us will know him. And then while he's still preparing, I'll just read through his profile. We're going to just talk through the labor markets impact reports. And then when he's ready, he would hit the ground running. So for those of us who are not familiar with Mr. Ayodele, he's a data and AI professional with over decades of experience. If you've been attending Data Fest, you would see him often in all of his glory and efforts impacting data community. In the last couple of years, even before AI became a thing, he has actively been playing the AI space, sharing videos about how AI is improving. I think one of those first videos, well, where Will Smith was eating spaghetti or indomie and was somehow weird. He shared that video at that time, and he has constantly shared updates on the AI stuff. We're also part of one of Nigeria's AI initiative alongside our Minister of Digital Economy, Mr. Bosu. So he has really done a lot in the space of AI, and that's why we know that he is a great person for this talk. Throughout his career, he has worked as a consultant at the Big Four consulting firm. He has led data-driven solutions and provided insights for clients. He has led AI initiatives to empower organizations, and is also strong in community development as well. And that's why he's here to speak to us. One of the co-organizers of Data Fest Africa. He also has a book. He's an author of exploratory data analysis with Python cookbook, right? One of the books, a book published by Packets, which is a top 5 leading global technology publisher, right? So we're in no doubt in the right hands. So today, I know that a lot of things are happening. We can do a lot of things with AI today. AI is revolutionizing how we work. And as people in the tech space who are using this technology firsthand, it's very important for us to be prepared so we are not taken by storm, we're not taken by surprise. You are data people. If you are using if you have Claude integrated with your Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, you know that you can do analysis with Google Sheets already. It's Claude. Even with Gemini, they're able to do these kind of things. All right. Prequel, Prequel is a company in the US that has done an AI solution that provides end-to-end data infrastructure build using AI end-to-end for the finance space end-to-end. They even got an award by Gartner just last week here. They were awarded by Gartner last week. So you can see things are changing. And so it's very important for us to be aware of what is happening and be ready for it. Okay, I can see Stayo's video is up now. So are you ready now? You're muted, or you still want a few minutes?
Yeah, if you could give me just one more minute. Sorry,
Okay,
my system just developed a mind of its own. Yeah.
Okay, that's right. That's
almost
fine.
done.
All right, sir. All right. So while Mr. Ayo is still prepping, um, I'll just be. Let me share my screen on this stuff. So this is what I was talking about. I'm just going through it as well for the first time. So let's see. It says occupation with higher observed exposures are projected by the BLS to do less through 2034, measuring exposure. Um, these approach combines data from these three sources: ONET database, our own data usage, and tax level exposure. Have exposure tracks. Let's see. Okay, most exposed occupations, computer programmers. You see, we are there, we are the highest. Customer service representatives, data entry keep kiosks, medical record specialists, market research analysts, sales rep, even sales, interesting, financial analysts, software quality assurance analysts, information security analysts, computer user. Aha. So you can just check it out. I think Zaya is ready now. So let me stop.
Okay, yeah, David, I'm ready. It's confirmed you can see my screen.
Correct. Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for having me. Always happy to have YDP sessions, interact with the community. YDP has a very special place in my heart, and I'm happy to be here. So I'm going to be talking to you about AI and the future of data roles, whether it's a threat or opportunity. I think that this technology called artificial intelligence, it's actually something big, and it's something everyone needs to be paying attention to. I usually like to say that we're at the brink of something big, something really, really, really big, right? And the truth about it is AI has changed the way we live, the way we interact, and the way we do business, right? If you look at our personal lives, you have things like AI assistants, therapists, AI friends, and these are things that just a few years ago didn't exist. But we're seeing them, we're seeing people interact with them, a lot more often. And I'm sure if we do a scan, right, and I think we could just do a quick scan. How many of us have used ChatGPT over the last 24 hours? Can I see your hands? Okay, let me look at the comments. Okay.
You can use your digital hand.
Yes, digital hand. Trying to just navigate. Okay, I think I can. Oh, just 3 people. Interesting. What about the last 48 hours? Okay, 16 people. Okay. You can no, I want to see, like, raise your hands. I want you to actually raise your hands. So use the raise hand button. Just so that I get a sense. Okay, so how many of us have used ChatGPT within the last 48 hours? Okay, I can see 8 people. All right, so that's about 50%. Within the last 1 week, how many of us? I'm expecting all hands to be up, actually. Okay, so we have more people. All right, so, and that just shows you how this technology is now woven into the fabric of our daily lives, right? And this was a technology that prior to 2023, I mean, people were really not using. And it just shows you how much AI has actually changed the way we live. It's also changed the way we do business. So if you think about it, a lot of organizations are talking about, being AI ready. A lot of organizations are talking about, how, how AI is going to change, either how they go about hiring, or how it's going to change their operations, how it's going to help them grow, their revenue or reduce costs. So you have lots of more organizations talking about this, unlike before. And so, like I said, what we're seeing is something really big, right? Bigger than what we might envisage. And yes, there might be a lot of hype, but within the hype, there's also a lot happening. And I also like to say that I typically also like to say that this isn't the first time this is happening in the world. We've been through this at least 3 times, right? Or the world has been through this at least 3 times. When the steam engine, came on board, this was 18th century. You also had significant disruptions with, within industries. When electricity also came on board, we saw quite a lot of disruptions, quite a lot changing. I mean, a lot of the world we see today was created all because of electricity. A lot of what we see today is created on the back of electricity, right? The next wave was computers, which was in the 1950s. And we've also seen that wave, change a lot of things in terms of jobs, new roles, some jobs becoming obsolete, and new possibilities, basically, right? If you think about the internet too, just that I won't separate the internet from computers, right? They're kind of like related. So still under computers, you have the internet, and we've seen a huge wave of changes. I mean, there's some jobs that before the internet didn't even exist, right? Digital marketer and all of that, cyber security experts, a couple of jobs that before computers and the internet didn't exist. And so we're seeing changes. I remember, this was like 2000, between 2006 and 2009. At the time, I was a graphic designer, very passionate about graphic design. So I used to do designs. I also used to follow a lot of ads, in newspapers, just following what companies were doing and all of that. And the ad space was really big then, companies were spending a lot, on ads, investing in ads. Agencies were, one of their selling points was the fact that they could do very unique special ads, right, for organizations within newspapers. So it was a big deal. But today, newspaper ads are not such a big deal anymore. Now we're talking about digital ads thanks to computers and the internet, right? And this is just about how many years? That's I said till 2009. That's just about 15, 16 years, right? And we've seen that rapid growth, that rapid change, right? And so with artificial intelligence, it's also the same thing. We're going to see significant changes. Like I said, this is not the first time the world, is getting here. We've been here at least 3 other times. And so with this technology, we're also going to see rapid changes. What makes artificial intelligence different from several other technologies? Because, someone might say, but what about crypto? A lot of people have been talking about crypto. There's been a lot of hype around crypto, and all of that, but crypto has still not taken off like we expected. But what makes artificial intelligence different is that it's an enabling technology, right? And the thing about enabling technologies is enabling technologies can work across industries, which means that unlike crypto, which is limited to finance, AI can work across industries, from finance to, industries and domains. So from finance to, manufacturing to different consulting to even like domains, customer experience, IT, software engineering, marketing. It is going to enable, right? And that's what makes it different and that's also what makes it very disruptive, right? And unpredictable because it's enabling, right? It's an enabler, right? And it can function across different domains and different industries. And that's why we all need to be paying attention. And so the world has changed, right? It is reshaping industries, jobs, and the future of work. These are just a few newspaper excerpts. There's one from Financial Times, which talks about headcounts, in major investment banks is reducing by about 30%. The second one from Rest of the World talks about entry-level coding jobs dropping, right? And there's another one from McKinsey from the Fortune talking about 12 million workers needing to switch occupations by 2030, right? So we're seeing significant shifts when it comes to industries, when it comes to jobs and the future of work, and we're still going to see more, right? David talked about how Anthropic, dropped some research. One of the other things Anthropic seems to be very good at is also dropping new features that just get everybody scared, right? Almost every week, Anthropic is always dropping something that just makes you look at the world and you're like, okay, what's going on, right? Who's going to be left with a job, for the lack of a better word? But I guess the point is we're going to see several more disruptions, right? So I say brace up, right? And what that then means is there's a lot of preparation that needs to go in, right, at an individual level and also at a collective level, right? And that's something we'll be talking about towards the end of this presentation. I'm going to talk about how AI is going to impact, data roles, data related roles. I also talk about what you can actually do, right, to be prepared for that disruption. Um, so let's just quickly talk about AI itself, because one of the things I noticed is that a lot of times people just say AI, AI, AI without really understanding what it is. Right. So let's just go through some of these, basic definitions so that we're on the same page, and then we can pick up from there. So AI basically refers to any system, right, that's designed to perform tasks that usually require human intelligence. A simple way I like to say it is AI basically mimics human intelligence. So when you see a system that mimics human intelligence, that's artificial intelligence, right? So, and this kind of systems, AI systems, understand language. Language is something that, humans, right, understand, and you require intelligence to understand language. Um, AI is able to recognize images, right? So it's able to say, oh, that's a dog, oh, that's a cat. It's even able to identify specific faces. So when you think about Face ID on your phone, the reason why your phone unlocks when you put it to your face is because it's recognized you, right? Um, AI is also able to perform predictions, make predictions. I'll talk about this shortly. Can answer questions like a human being. It can also generate text, generate content, right? And so when we think about everyday examples, Siri, Alexa, right, those are, AI systems. When you think about chatbots, not just any type of chatbot, but the intelligent ones that when you're chatting with them, you almost can't tell that it's a system. That's actually artificial intelligence. Chat GPT, for example, you're chatting with Chat GPT a lot of times, you even forget that, oh, this is actually a chatbot, right? That is artificial intelligence at play. And then in cases where AI is able to predict patterns, right, based on data, you have the likes of Netflix and Spotify. We'll talk about that shortly, actually. And there are two types of artificial intelligence. There's what you call traditional AI, and there's what you call generative AI. Now, traditional AI has been around for ages, right? In fact, AI has been around for ages. I'll talk about that on the next slide. But traditional AI focuses more on identifying patterns and making predictions based on the patterns. So it's basically learning from historical data, and based on the historical data, making predictions, right? So when you see an AI powered fraud detection engine, what is happening is the AI engine or the AI system has learned from historical patterns of fraud and is able to then predict the next time it sees it, to say, oh, based on this historical patterns, you know, uh, this is actually what this transaction is a fraud, or this transaction is not a fraud, right? Things like credit risk scoring. Is this person going to default on the loan, or are they not going to default on the loan? Netflix and Amazon or Spotify recommendations. I think I talked about this earlier. So, I mean, I'm sure this has happened to everyone, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Netflix, whether it's on Spotify. You're playing content that you like, could be music, could be movies, and then all of a sudden the thing just switches to a playlist, and almost every song there is a hit, is a song that you like, right? That is artificial intelligence at play. It's almost like someone knows you, or the system knows you. That has happened to me several times. What is happening there is basically just artificial intelligence, and it almost makes it feel like a human being has looked at your preferences, has made certain you know um decisions around it based on those preferences, and he's saying, you know what, I think you like this. Same way, if you're talking to a friend and you say, oh, I like this artist, I like that artist, I like this movie, I like that movie, the friend is able to say, oh, okay, then I think you like this other one, right? And that's exactly what artificial intelligence is doing in that case, right? And so all of that sits under traditional AI. Like I said, it's been around for ages, for a while, but the boom we see today was not driven by traditional AI, and we'll come to that on the next slide. The boom was driven by something we call generative AI. So, what's generative AI? Generative AI is any system that creates new content. It could be text, it could be images, it could be code, it could be audio files, video files, you know, based on patterns learned from large data sets, right? And this is where like the chat GPTs will sit. This is where platforms like your DALI, your Nano Banana, for images will sit. This is where like your Suno, for as many of us, are familiar with AI generated music. This is where your Sora or your, I've forgotten Google's own Veo, right, will sit for generating videos, right? So this is where a lot of those tools will sit because they're generating content, right? And so examples, ChatGPT generating text or code. This is also where like a Claude Code or Codex sits because they generate code, right? Another example is summarizing documents, creating marketing content, generating images or videos. So you have traditional AI, generative AI, and the boom, based on this chart, has been largely driven by generative AI. So the thing about AI is it's been around since the 1950s. However, we've had several booms, right? We had some booms in the 60s to the 70s. Then we had something called a winter. Usually AI winter is when people just stop investing because they're like, oh, you know what, this whole thing is hype. We're not doing it again. And then all of a sudden researchers find something innovative and new, and it leads to another boom. So between the 80s and the 90s, there was another one. And then you had another winter up until the 2000s. And then early 2000s, there was the growth of the traditional AI, thanks to deep learning, right? Neural networks and all of that. And okay, I don't think I'll go into that part, but there was some growth, right? Thanks to neural networks, people started talking more about, AI again. However, the huge boom we now see today was driven by generative AI, right? Especially ChatGPT, when ChatGPT was launched. And what generative AI just did was it unlocked several use cases, several use cases that were beyond reach before now. It also unlocked a level of intelligence that we had never seen prior to now. Before ChatGPT, chatbots struggled a lot. But thanks to ChatGPT and the new tools now, chatbots are extremely intelligent and they can fool you into thinking they're actually humans, right? And yeah, so that's what we see today. So in terms of data roles and the AI impact, let's quickly talk about this. So let's talk about the various roles. You have the data analysts, collects, cleans, analyzes data. And why are they doing that? They want to be able to answer business questions and solve problems, right? They typically will use tools like SQL, Power BI, Excel, Python, and the likes. Again, I'm sure you're familiar with this role, so we won't dwell too much on them. The data scientist, on the other hand, finds patterns within data. Please just a second. The data scientist, on the other hand, uncovers insights and creates what we call machine learning models. So data scientist is, more, how can I predict stuff, right? I want to be able to predict. And, we talked about prediction earlier. So the SQL, they're better at programming. So Python, R, some of them still use tools like Power BI, Azure ML, and the likes of Python. They're heavy on Python and ML models, statistical analysis, and research, right? While the data analyst, dashboards, reports, insights, and stuff. Now, the data engineer basically designs, develops, and maintains systems for collecting and storing data. So the data engineer basically is getting all the data and, based on that data is basically, aggregating it, collating it, and just ensuring that that data is available for the data analysts and every other person, to be able to use, right? So that's the data engineer. You have tools like SQL, Python again, ETL tools, SSIS, ADF, Fivetran, and several others, right? Those are the tools that they typically use, right? And so in terms of, things they focus on, pipelines, data warehouses, data lakes, infrastructure, and all of that. So those are the three major roles. And so Before we start to talk about the impact, I want us to talk about what the future really looks like. So this just gives you an idea of what to expect. Some weeks back, Spotify, someone in Spotify mentioned, a senior person, an exec said their best developers haven't written a line of code since December, thanks to AI, right? Anthropic, there's a tool they have called Cowork. That tool built itself through Claude Code, which I believe a lot of us should be, at least you should have heard of Claude Code if you're at least in the data space, you should have, right? So Claude Code built Cowork in 10 days, right? Completely. Yeah. Now, see an interview with the maker, the person who made Claude Code, right? See some of the key takeaways. See what he said. He said coding is now solved for most use cases. Boris, that's his name, Boris Cherny. Boris hasn't written a single line of code by hand since November, with 100% of his work now authored by Claude. At the same time, he remains one of the most productive engineers at Anthropic, shipping 10 to 30 pull requests daily while leading the team. Anthropic has seen a 200% increase in engineer productivity since adopting Claude Code. As Boris notes, back at Meta with hundreds of engineers working in productivity, we would see gains of a few percentage points in a year. Now we're seeing hundreds of percentage points. So this is what the future looks like. So let's now talk about the impact of AI on data roles. I'll try to finish in 10 minutes so that we can take questions. The first thing is democratization. What does democratization mean? So you've heard of vibe coding, right? You're most likely going to have vibe analysis and vibe engineering. I'm the one that came up with those terms. Well, I don't know if those terms exist, but in my head, while I was coming up with these slides, that was what came to my mind. So same way, people who know nothing about code are today creating platforms and portals, well, mostly prototypes, is the same way you'd have people who know nothing about SQL, Python. That person has always been disturbing you. Give me data, give me the analysis. Would be able to do his analysis himself because it will be democratized, which means that self-service is going to be on steroids. People have said, empower us, self-service. So maybe you did one Power BI dashboard for them, you did one SSRS or Power BI report builder dashboard for them, paginated report here. They are able to do one or two things, but it's still limited. Trust me, with this, self-service is going to be on steroid because they'll now be able to create some of those things. And guess what? They'll create it in plain language. It's not going to be like the low code, no code. Low code, no code, like I like to tell people, sometimes it's a scam. You say, low code, Power Automate is low code. The truth about it, if you still don't know how to script or code at a basic level, you'll not be great at those tools. So you still need to know how to code. But with this, that coding barrier is completely eliminated because what you then have to do is write it in English. Yes, if you know code, it will help. But the truth is that they'll still be able to do basic stuff that they will never have been able to imagine they could do, if not for the new tools that we'll start seeing. And so what it means is that we'll see a rise of new non-technical tools, right? Even existing platforms will start to release features, right? To say, Power BI, for example, release features that make it easier for the average person to be able to work with data. The next thing here is the rebundling of the data stack, because at the end of the day, what's likely to happen is that, with just plain English, on one platform, I might be able to do my engineering, and from engineering, I might be able to move to BI. Again, this is just my postulation. I might be wrong, but it's likely to happen. It's likely to happen. Do you understand? It's likely to happen where one platform just does end-to-end, right? And then the next is smaller teams, more output. Smaller teams, same output, or smaller teams, more output. So you have fewer people needed to produce the same or greater output. And this is where, as a professional, you need to pay attention, because if smaller teams will be able to do either more or same thing, then you obviously want to start thinking about job security. And I'm being very blunt and honest with us. In some other circles, I'll quote it. But I mean, you guys are my people, right? We don't know the direction this thing is going to go. Even me, I don't know the direction. But what's most important is that today we start to prepare, right? And so the next is roles will be imagined, right? So it's very possible. I don't know what direction it's going to take. That some rules will become obsolete. Some rules will be merged, right? It's not impossible that maybe a company, and this was already happening even before AI, where the data engineer is also the data analyst. Same thing. So we're likely to see that also start to happen. It's not just data, even in software engineering, the product management role and the developer role, they are becoming a lot more, the lines are becoming blurry, thanks to tools like Cloud Code. Even the UI UX role becoming a lot more blurry, right? Now, the next thing is governance is likely to grow, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, you can write in English and just say, give me this, give me that, but it's still garbage in, garbage out. And because a lot of systems, different vendors will make different systems. So it's not like you're all coming together to say, let's make it this way. So it's likely that there will still be governance issues, right? And so there'll be focus on that. But it's also likely, and that's the last point, that even vendors will start to build based on the new paradigm of, okay, people should be able to write in plain English and be able to make changes. So that's something else we might even start to also see, where vendors start to change the way they're building just so that they can be competitive, right? And so that's it in terms of the impact. So what should you do? Very, very clear, very straightforward. And this is my last slide. The first thing I put here is be the superstar. What does that mean? Focus on the work that directly impacts business decisions. Be that person that people can go to and they know they will get results, right? Be known for solving important problems. Very, very important. The second is stay abreast of changes. So, what are some of the new tools? What are workflows? Integrate their capabilities into what you're doing. You shouldn't just be writing SQL anymore. Yes, you should understand it and know. You should have ChatGPT helping you. Hey, I like to tell people that some weeks back, I think it was like 2 months ago now, there was one legacy script that my team had been carrying for almost years now. We had built that thing, added. It was now like a stool with 3 bad legs and only 1 good leg. So I remember looking at it with one of my team members to say, guy, we're going to have to refactor this thing. And I told him, guy, this thing, we're going to spend 1 month refactoring it. Just get ready. We'll look at it together, do this, do that, do that. And then one weekend, that was a Friday. That weekend, I said, come, why not let me give this thing to ChatGPT? Let's even see how. And lo and behold, again, because I'm experienced and I knew what to write, in 45 minutes, I was done. 45 minutes, I'm not joking. The work that would have taken 1 month, in 45, and that 45 minutes included debugging. In 45 minutes, I was done. By Monday, by the time I called the guy, even he could not believe it. And ChatGPT wrote in such a way that it was even better. It was, it was better, it was cleaner. It was the kind of thing that I was already thinking, SQL can never do this thing. Maybe we should move it to Python. That's really how complex it was. SQL did it fantastically. Yeah. So please stay abreast and integrate. I also put here learn and unlearn. Continue updating yourself. Things are changing. There's Cloud Code today, co-work tomorrow, Codex tomorrow. Just keep at it. It might be tiring, but know where it is impacting your work. Oh, I don't design well. Hey, then you should be using these tools to design your dashboard. Right? Then the next is pivot when needed. So sometimes it might be a losing battle. And again, it's still early days, but if you ever find yourself struggling, in a particular role and it's not looking like the upside of that role is going to be high, my friend, pivot to look for other competitive roles. And I'm not necessarily referring to an organization, I'm referring to the role as in role. Do you understand? So you need to pivot when needed. The second to last is build strong fundamentals. So still learn. I said, we use I use the ChatGPT for SQL and all that. Still learn the basics, understand it. Because when you understand it is when you'll be able to tell SQL what to do. Like that job that took 45 minutes. I knew what I wanted. I knew that if I created that thing as a function, it was better than if I just told ChatGPT to write the script. Now, because I knew that, it cut the time short. Imagine I didn't know that. ChatGPT would have written that script. And yes, it might have been better than the previous one, but maybe not as optimal. Right. So you also still need the fundamentals so that you know how to ask questions. Right. And then the last is move closer to the business. Always be close to the business. Always. Always be. Your value must be tied to the business. And I think I'll stop right. Thank you very much. And I would take questions now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Ayo. Thank you so much. I see a lot of people clapping and giving likes. Thank you so much. So now this is time for taking questions. You could either put your questions in the chat or you raise your hands up to ask your questions. I can see your hand is up. Or over to your question.
So can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
can hear you.
All right. Thank you so much. Personally, I think I did learn a lot. While it's not new information, it's more or less like reaction and
Sorry,
help.
okay, your line is
The mic
Oh, what?
is more.
far, sounds far, yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, better now.
Much better.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I was saying that I did learn a lot personally. While some of it are not new information, they also help validate some assumption and things I'm already learning myself. And like you said, I'm also strategically looking for how to, when necessary, pivot. But now I have two questions just for the audience. The first one is, yes, there's really a lot of conversation and noise as related to how a lot of technical people need to start learning the business. In the past, a lot of data engineers, as you were, or even data analysts, all they just do, people call them support ticket manager. They just build pipelines, do all of that, which is amazing. And you said something now that these things are getting commoditized. It's no longer going to be the move. So is there a question of how do you think a data engineer or a data analyst or a data scientist can better learn the business and most importantly, speak to your first point as relates to be the superstar. How can they start thinking strategically to see how to better position themselves? Because I also believe that the future of data role would shrink a lot. That's also my own ideology too, where you would have 2 to 3 people that are doing not just technical but connected more to the business. But is there a question of how do you think data people can start positioning towards that reality, which is happening soon?
Okay. Was there another question? I know you said you had two questions.
Yeah. I would ask the follow-up question after this.
Okay. So I think soft skills play a very big role. And I'll take data engineering. For data analysts, you still have a lot of face time with stakeholders, right? So for data analysts, it might be a bit easier. And so what I'll say is just make sure you're working on the right type of projects that give visibility. Make sure you're engaging stakeholders properly so that whatever your projects you're working on, you're able to track the benefits, right? And how they're using it. Don't just give dashboard, give reports. You don't even know how they are using it. In your own head, you've just ticked off a support ticket and that is it. Don't do that. Right. Be able to connect value to what you've done. Yeah. So that's what the data analyst. I think for the data engineer, that is usually a backend role where if they're dealing with anybody, it's mostly IT. I think that the data engineer needs to start to get more visibility, right? More visibility will mean putting your soft skills to good use. In some cases, it might mean doing some of the work that the analysts are also doing. In some cases, it might mean taking on governance across the organization, right? So taking on governance, especially when you see that many companies have issues with governance. Governance is one of the things that can give you some form of face time, because the next time a stakeholder is saying, the number is not correct, you can have conversations with them and you can start to build governance around their numbers. Building governance around their numbers will get you the audience. You get, because everyone wants to be able to say that, oh, this data is fine. I can make decisions based on it. So governance is one inroad, and just general engagement so that they can even see the value and understand the work you're doing. A lot of times, data engineers, people don't even understand how technical and how hard this can be. So I'll say you can start to, do more governance work, do small analysis work, but more importantly, use your soft skills to engage stakeholders, either on a professional note in terms of, oh, this is the work you're doing, or sometimes on a personal note, because ideally you should actually build relationships with your with team members, with colleagues, who would be able to speak on your behalf, right? When the time is right. So that's what I would say. I would say generally everybody needs to up their soft skills, up it. I've seen, and I'll just end with this. I've worked with several people, I've managed several people. I've seen people who are technically sound, but soft skills really bad. So what would typically, if I remember this happened in a team I once managed. You had two guys. One guy was in fact his nickname said from his nickname, the nickname already signified that the guy was good. Right. But and there was some other guy, second guy, he was also good, but he was just better with stakeholders. Every time promotion conversations came up, I always had a hard time pushing the other guy with the nickname who was technically better and sound than the other guy. The other guy was always it was easy. Everybody would just be, that guy, yeah. We're moving him forward. But this other guy that's technically sound and good, it was always war. Right. So what I'll say is up your soft skill game. Up it a whole lot. Right. Yeah. And also be technically savvy, like still be very, very good. Put time into your work. Be the superstar would also mean that, you're faster than every other person. You already know how AI can help you do things faster. You know how AI can, do you get? And that's how you can be a superstar. Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Had this second question.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Ayo, for sharing that. I think I resonate a lot with how technical work, data engineering workflow can be so blindfolded, where people people tend to find it very difficult to even see what we're doing. So it require a lot of finding ways to at least give that visibility. Now, my second question is now to a junior person in the audience. Now, there's that debate of organization would rather hire a senior person who can leverage AI in code as a junior analyst. How do you think, what would you be your own suggestion? You as an hiring manager, who you definitely would hire data folks, how do you think data junior folks should really prepare themselves? Do you think it's still necessary for them to start learning those things? It's just a thing of leverage AI to see how you can up yourself to a mid role. So just realistically and also in a pragmatic way, what will you suggest any junior person now? Because I know it's getting very difficult to get those junior roles, but what would be your own suggestion as an hiring manager?
Hmm. Yeah, you're right. It will get more and more difficult, but I think learning the basics is still important, at least for where the technology is at today. I think you still need to learn the basics. People make an argument that with coding, there was a time it was assembly language, but we've moved beyond assembly language, to the programming languages we have today. Nobody's really learning assembly language. Again, for data and stuff, we don't know what direction this is going to go in. But I think always learning the basics helps. And you find out that the best programmers today in the world are people who, right from that assembly language to, C++, C, they understood the fundamentals and then they took it to the more popular programming languages, today, Python, Java, JavaScript, and all, right? So I think still learning the basics will help because AI can be wrong, right? AI can be wrong. And if you understand the basics, you'll be able to steer AI in the right direction, right? So I'll say still learn the basics, obviously work on yourself, work on projects, and yeah, that's what I would say.
All right.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Do we have any more questions? Any question? You can raise up your hand to ask, or you can use the chat box. Questions. All right. While people are thinking, I have one question, just a general question for the African market. Do you think there are specific opportunities that AI would create for data professionals in the African market, particularly because most businesses in Africa are still behind in terms of adoption of AI? Do you think there's a special opportunity that I would create for data professionals just because of the businesses in Africa are still behind when it comes to AI adoption?
Yeah, I think you can be a superstar really fast. I remember, and this is the time to really shine. I remember sometime last year there was a project I was working on. They gave us one PowerPoint template to work on. Everybody was wasting time, and me, I just turned it in and turned it in quickly. I turned it in quickly in such a way that it was obvious that it was that, such that nobody would know it was AI. Because I mean, again, I did my promptings well and all of that. I remember when the consultants saw it, because we were working with consultants, they were like, wow, and they kept referencing my work. They didn't know it was AI. So these are good times when you should be leveraging AI to speed up your work. In some cases, speed up the work so that you can move fast and show value. In some other cases, speed up your work so that you can have more time to put into other things. Julian. So if it was taking 3 days before, I mean, yes, you can submit it in 2 days, even though you finished it in one day. The extra one day, you can have it to yourself to do other things that you think will be useful for your growth. Right? That's also another way to look at it. Or you can just finish it in one day and turn it around in one day. However you look at it, I mean, what's most important is make sure that you're using that AI, because like you said, a lot of African companies are still just trying to catch on. When everybody catches on, it becomes the default. Right? But while people are still catching on, I mean, you can really shine.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That means in the midst of the gloom, there's still sunshine, there's still opportunities. Questions. You can raise up your hands. You can use the chat box to ask your question. All right, one more question. I'm looking at the build strong fundamental slide. It says deepening data modeling, for example, like this example, statistics, experimentation, quality governance. In the age of AI, would you recommend for data professionals to deepen on a particular skill set within data framework, or to broaden their skills to understand a little about modeling, a little about statistics, a little about experimentation, or to deepen about experimentation and be the experimentation experts?
That's a very good question, and I'm just even trying to figure out what the answer should be. There's the part of breadth, which can be good, right? Because you become a bit more attractive, right? In terms of different type of roles. But there's also the part of depth, because by the time you're now drilling down to a specific role, people want that you have significant experience in that role. So I'll say it's both, but I'll say prioritize depth over breadth. Prioritize that depth, go deep, understand how Power BI works, the inner workings, performance tuning, how to design your report, how to understand it, learn the complementary tools that might go with Power BI. Well, if it's a Microsoft environment, Power Apps, Power Automate, things that would enhance your work, learn them. So go deep. I'll say go deep, and then you can also go wide in terms of just let's even understand what data engineers are doing, what the tools. I work on 1 or 2 projects with them just to understand, so that tomorrow, if a company is saying they want an analyst, but they're also asking for someone with some data engineering experience, you are going to be the candidate. And if tomorrow they also say, oh, they want someone who's very good, right? Then you're also the candidate.
Cool. Thank you so much. A follow-up question to this. So based on all you've said from previous slides, would I be correct to say that if I'm going deep, the way for me to make a choice on which area to go deep would depend on an area that is closest to the business? Should I use that strategy in deciding where I want to go deep on?
Yeah, That's a very, 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 very good question, actually. Um, and it's a nuanced answer. What I'll say is prioritize what the business will consider important without sacrificing your career. All right. How do I mean? So imagine if let's say try to just look for a good example. So imagine if the organization wants you to start building maybe predictive reports and all of that, right? Along with your normal descriptive reports and all of that. That's a very great opportunity because it's great because you're helping the business, but your career is also you're also helping your career because what it means is tomorrow you're able to say, oh, you've done some data science type of work, and it could even be maybe engineering related, right? Maybe the business relies a lot on IT, and you know that if you're able to kind of like support IT and take this work from IT, it will make you shine, right? So that's good because that's from a career perspective, that's a good one. But imagine if maybe the business is using one very old tool, right? And they now need someone who can be an expert in that tool. But that tool is a tool that you know that outside of your organization, nobody's going to use it. You want to be careful. So yes, you can learn it, but don't get carried away. Do you understand? Don't get carried away. Always keep your career. Always be selfish around your career. That's what I'll say. Always be selfish around your career and your own goals. Don't overly align to the company goals that you forget about your goals. Because tomorrow, if that company crashes, not only will that company crash, you will crash with it. Because you now won't be able to find any job out there. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. You have to understand where you are, understand the value even outside of that place to make that strategy. I think that makes sense. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. We are still receiving questions. We're still receiving questions. You can raise up your hands. You can use the chat bot. We are still receiving questions. Okay, so why? Okay, the hand is up. Daniel, please go ahead.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for the exposition. It was really, really insightful. Right. So I want to ask for someone who is a data analyst, for instance, and is probably looking at going into data engineering, because as you had said, right, starting to see that aside from the fact that now data roles are getting, the demand is lesser than the supply, in the sense that for instance, data analytics, there's a lot of supply of data analysts, right? And demand is lesser. And in the sense that there's also self-service analytics, right, that is being pushed within industries. So even business people now kind of do analytics. All right. So the data analyst looking to pivot into data engineering, right? And is doing the learning and doing all what it takes to do, right? And it's just like a spiral. It just keeps going and going. And in the middle of all this, these tools are coming in, automating, these things. It's kind of at some point it starts to get tiring, because you're like, okay, so I'm going down this spiral, learning a lot of all these things, but I'm still hearing a lot of news that, okay, this can now be automated. This does not necessarily. So how do you, or what would you say, how do one strategically position himself, or what's the best route? I don't even know how to phrase the question well, but
So are you saying you position as a data engineer or position as a data analyst?
As a data engineer now, you're trying to transition from being a data analyst to being a data engineer, but it's like you're learning and learning, but the more you're learning, the more you're seeing, news of AI automating this, AI automating that. So
Yeah, it's a really hard time to be learning anything. I won't even lie, but I think what's most important is if you focus on the fundamentals, don't get distracted, right? Data engineering, building pipelines, understanding warehouse concepts, as simple as it sounds, even going back to that book, Data Warehouse Toolkit, or what's that book? It's not a bad idea. understand it, to the, like, really, really understand it. Do you understand? Don't get caught up with, maybe someone comes and says, they've automated the pipeline process for data warehouse. Like, don't get too caught up in that. Do you understand? Make sure there's a typical learning path for the data engineer. Follow it. Do you understand? Follow it. But also, in following it, don't now just do old school. Follow it, understand the old school concepts, because, for example, that data warehouse toolkit, now there are a lot of things that should have been updated by now, right? So understand what the new age concepts also are. Do you understand? That definitely will make you stand out. Do you get?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I
Thank
do.
you, sir. So there's a question in the chat.
Okay.
It says, how do you position yourself when the company you work for is oblivious to these improvements and there's no room for growth around how to be involved in AI?
So your business is not, don't overly focus on your company. That's what me I'd say. Focus on yourself, right? So, and as you focus on yourself, keep building yourself, keep finding ways to integrate AI into your work, whether your company is supporting it or not. Do you get? Even if it's that you would have a personal subscription to ChatGPT, it's fine. If your company will pay for that, do it for yourself. Do you get? Hopefully, your company may catch up. Do you understand? I remember when I started, and this is just on a personal note. I remember when I started doing AI 2023, really, late 2023 was when that's within my organization now, not necessarily when I started. Yeah, I remember, I had someone working with me then, and we're just testing a few things around LLMs and stuff, and we were both impressed. So after that 2023, I said, this thing, we should do something, we should do something. We ran trainings, did everything. It first seemed like nothing was happening. But hey, just last year, all of a sudden, things just blew up. A couple of key stakeholders just saw it and were like, this is impressive. Okay, let's, we need to champion this thing. We need to, and that was it. But the truth about it is, even if that didn't happen, I won't be overly focused on, oh, my company is this, my company is that. And if it gets too bad, then maybe what you need to do is start looking to leave. Juliet, if it gets too bad where they are just not interested and it doesn't seem like they'll ever be interested, then maybe it's time to actually leave. But I think the point is, don't be overly focused on what company is doing, what company is not doing. You just focus on yourself.
Oh, cool. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So we have 3 more minutes to go, and I have one final question to round it up. And before I ask the question, I'd like to thank everyone for stopping by for this webinar. This is a monthly webinar that will be hosted by YDP, Young Data Professionals. I know this link went outside of YDP, and if you've not joined the community, you can reach out to anybody on the group we shared with you to join the YDP community, so that even as we are preparing ourselves for this AI age, you would also be able to get more information as well. And every month expect to see career changing, life changing webinar topics that will be impactful to you and to your career. And my final question has to bring it to a close. Okay, you have a question. What chances does people with AI or AM background have? I think they have very great chances. My last question would be, now, previously, a data professional would be someone who understands SQL, who does dashboards, who interprets results, who does pipelines. But right now, AI can do these things. Do you think in the near future, in the far future, that the definition of a data professional will change? That will no longer be defined as someone who can just write SQL and Python and who can do machine learning models and stuff like that. And then if you think it's going to change, how much changes do you think it would be? Do you have any idea? What's your clue? What's your thought on how that change would look like?
Sorry, David, can you come again? I lost that.
Okay. I said we right now data professionals are defined as people who use SQL, Python, build pipelines, prepare dashboards, and all whatnot, creates insights. But right now, AI can do these things. Do you think in the near future, in the far future, that definition will change of data professionals?
Well, like I said, we'll see new tools. We'll see existing tools incorporate some of these things.
We're already seeing it today. Vibe coding platforms, purely English. The person doesn't even have to know code. They're not there yet, but that's the direction things are going. I'm sure there'll be a day when you'll be able to publish those kind of platforms to production, you know, and there'll be no issues, right? For the more complex systems, obviously, you still need a developer, right? Or developers. I won't be surprised if in the analytics engineering space, we start to have things like that, right? Then Fivetran already tried doing, something similar, such that you already have connectors, you don't have to, drag and drop and all of that. But the next phase might just be, I write it in English. I want to connect system A to system B. And the AI agent automatically does it. Today you have to rely on Fivetran. You have to
Mhm.
rely on connectors that Fivetran has. Tomorrow might not necessarily be the case. It might just be you have two systems, you want to connect them. There are no existing connectors, and AI agent picks it up, creates the connector for you, and does the connection. And all you wrote was in English. Again, like I said, we don't know the direction this thing is going to go in. But now, how you'll be able to steer the AI in the right direction is why you need to know your basics. Is why you know that, maybe there's some API documentation of both systems. So in your prompt, you're saying, check the API documentation of these two systems and create a connector. If you didn't have that knowledge, you might write a prompt, yes, I want to connect these two systems. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't work. But again, if you have that knowledge, it helps you, you're faster, you get the work job done quicker, and you have fewer hallucinations in the process, at least with the way the tools work today.
Cool, cool. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
sir.
I think I saw Okwe's hand again.
Yes, yes, I saw his hand. Okay.
I think I just maybe want to uh, ride on what you said earlier in one of your slides about how the demand is no longer more technicality as much as learning the fundamentals is key, but more around getting that business visibility and whatnot. Recently, OpenAI started hiring for analytics engineer. And it was very interesting for me to see how that role was framed. They asked about the technical skill, which was it. But now, if you go and read the requirement, it was more like, you need to have good strategic thinking and business understanding of this domain because the role was embedded into their go-to market. So that means you need to understand all the necessary things that needs to be done from that side of things, which no longer just technical knowledge, which they feel like, okay, fine, you're coming as as a data engineer and whatnot, you should have that as a basics, but that's not the only thing we need you to do. So which speaks to what you were saying earlier, how that it's no longer just going to be technical knowledge because it's becoming like this thing is now easy to do, but more around finding ways to get closer to the business, to learn how things better drive those value. Because I guess that's where the value is, and that's where it becomes very hard to for AI in code to eliminate some of this because a lot of those value proposition and interaction with the business come with contextual understanding, come with understanding what's going on with the business, come with human interaction and all necessary that relates to organization dynamics, which probably will still take forever for you to do all of those things. I think just to further strengthen what you said earlier, which for me too, and also for my team, it's just the knowledge knowing that don't just go beyond just learning the technical thing. Start asking the question, how does what I'm doing get that visibility to the business? And that just pretty much help us to think better on whatever solution we are recommending to our client.
Cool, cool, cool. Thank you so much, okay. Thank you so much, okay. And then thank you so much, Mr. Ayo. We are at the end of this webinar and really appreciate everyone recording. This session is recorded and will be shared across to everyone for a repeat hearing. So thank you so much, everyone. Thanks so much, Mr. Ayo. Thanks, Ope. Thanks, Chinedu. Thanks, Demiga. Thanks, David.
Thank
Really
you, everyone.
appreciate it.
Thank you for
And
having me.
then see you in the next webinar. And I've got the remaining questions on the chat on YDP chat, so you can continue the questions and conversations. Yeah. See you. Bye bye.
All right, thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me. All right.
All right.
Thank you.